In the dense jungles and vast river plains of Southeast Asia, beneath the towering spires of stone temples, echoes of ancient war still whispered through the shadows. The Khmer Empire, a colossal force that rose with relentless ambition, did not merely carve temples from rock, they carved history itself through fire and blood. Their conquests were a symphony of violence and strategy, a storm that swept across neighboring kingdoms, leaving behind ruins that tell tales of shattered realms and broken spirits. This is not a story of glistening crowns or peaceful reigns. It is a saga soaked in the dark essence of survival, conquest, and cultural transformation. The battlefield was both a stage of death and a forge of legacy, where warriors bled and empires trembled. Yet, amid the thunder of war, the everyday lives of those caught in the empire's shadow endured rituals performed by trembling hands, meals shared in the flicker of fires, and traditions reborn from ashes. To understand the true depth of Khmer influence, we must walk through the smoke of battle and into the quiet resilience that followed. This is the tale of how warfare shaped not just lands, but the very soul of a region forever marked by Khmer Shadows. Part 1. The Rise of the Angkorian War Machine. Blood and stone in the Mekong. Beneath a sky swollen with the heavy breath of monsoon clouds, the Khmer Empire stood a titan awakening from the lush heart of the Mekong Delta. This was a realm built on the bones of warriors, forged through years of relentless conflict. From the ancient city of Angkor, great stone temples reached for the heavens, silent sentinels to a time when war was the language that shaped kings and kingdoms alike. The Khmer Empire's rise was no quiet conquest. It was a storm of steel and fire, a brutal assertion of dominance that would echo across neighboring lands for centuries. The drums of war thundered deep within the forests and fields surrounding Angkor, calling the empire's legions to arms. These were not mere soldiers, but a war machine honed by centuries of conflict, warriors forged in the crucible of survival, clad in bronze and iron, with swords and spears that caught the light like shards of shattered dawn. They marched under banners embroidered with serpents and the image of the divine king. Their footsteps pounded earth, soaked with the blood of past battles, each campaign an act of both terror and reverence. The Khmer kings were not distant rulers, but fierce commanders who led their men into the maelstrom of war. Jayavarman Tuju, the empire's greatest warrior, was a shadowy figure draped in legend and myth, a god-king whose ambition knew no bounds. His reign marked the zenith of Khmer military power, as armies pushed beyond their borders to subjugate rivals and bring distant kingdoms under the shadow of Angkor. His armies tore through the dense jungles of present-day Thailand and Laos, their iron discipline crushing kingdoms like brittle bones beneath a giant's hand. Each battle was a dark ballet of blood and strategy. The Khmer forces deployed war elephants, massive beasts armored and armed with tusks, sharpened like blades, trampling foes and sowing chaos in enemy ranks. These giants moved with terrifying grace, their trumpeting cries ripping through the jungle's thick canopy. Behind them, archers loosed volleys of arrows that darkened the sky, their deadly rain striking down enemy warriors like a plague sent from the gods. Siege weapons battered the great walls of rival cities, while Khmer infantry surged forward, their war cries drowning the howls of the dying. But war was never only the clash of armies. It was a relentless test of endurance, a struggle that bled into the lives of ordinary people. Behind the front lines, villages were emptied, fields left fallow as farmers fled the advance of Khmer columns. Those who remained faced the terror of raids and the heavy hand of conscription. Boys barely more than children were taken from their families to serve in the ranks, learning to wield weapons with cold efficiency. Women tended to the wounded, their chants rising like ghosts over the blood-soaked earth, weaving rituals to protect the souls of the fallen. The spoils of war were as tangible as the lives lost. Conquered territories paid tribute in gold, spices, and slaves, enriching the Khmer court and fueling the empire's grand building projects. But these victories came at a cost: burned villages and displaced peoples, their histories swallowed in the shadow of Khmer expansion. Yet in these ruins lay the seeds of cultural exchange, as captured artisans and scholars brought new ideas and styles to Angkor's ever-growing tapestry. The temples themselves were a reflection of this violent majesty, monuments carved with scenes of battle, gods wreathed in the smoke of war, and kings depicted as both divine and ruthless. The Bayan temple's stone faces gazed down over the empire, silent witnesses to the blood spilled beneath their gaze. Every stone told a story of conquest, sacrifice, and the fragile balance of power that kept the empire's vast territories united. Khmer warfare also reshaped the political landscape of Southeast Asia. Neighboring kingdoms, Sukhothai, Kampa, and later Ayutthaya, learned to fear and respect the shadow of Angkor's armies. Alliances were forged in blood, betrayals struck with poison-tipped daggers, and diplomatic marriages sealed to bind enemies into uneasy peace. The constant threat of Khmer invasion forced rival kingdoms to adapt, their own armies growing more sophisticated, their rulers more cunning. The dance of war was unending, a relentless cycle that shaped not only borders but identities. Yet, despite the empire's martial prowess, Khmer kings understood that war was only one thread in the fabric of power. They wielded religion as skillfully as their swords, blending Hindu and Buddhist beliefs into a state ideology that sanctified conquest and kingship alike. Temples were not only shrines but fortresses of ideology, their priests chanting prayers that sanctified warriors and cursed their foes. This spiritual armor gave Khmer armies a sense of divine purpose, a belief that their conquests were ordained by the gods themselves. In the villages and camps, life persisted amidst the echoes of war. Food was simple but vital: rice harvested from the flooded fields, fish caught from the rivers that snaked through the empire, and fruits gathered from the dense jungle. During campaigns, soldiers survived on dried meat and wild herbs, their bodies hardened by months of marching under tropical suns and monsoon rains. Rituals to honor the dead and protect the living were performed at every turn, offerings made to ancestral spirits. Fires lit to ward off evil, and sacred chants whispered beneath the cover of night. The Khmer war machine, for all its might, was not infallible. Battles were often brutal and unpredictable, with victory slipping away in the grasp of overreach or betrayal. The jungles themselves were merciless allies of the vanquished, swallowing armies whole in tangled undergrowth and disease. Yet, the spirit of conquest endured, fueled by ambition and the fear of weakness. The Khmer Empire was a living organism, its heart beating in time with the clash of swords and the prayers of priests. As the sun set over the ancient landscape, casting long shadows over the temple stones and battlegrounds, the empire's story was far from finished. The echoes of war would continue to ripple through generations, shaping kingdoms and cultures long after the last arrow had flown. This was a tale of relentless ambition, of a civilization that fought to etch its name into eternity, broken but never forgotten. Part 2: Silent Aftermaths, Rituals, Resilience, and the Lives Bound by Conquest. When the roar of battle finally faded into the humid dusk, the land beneath Angkor did not rest. War was only one heartbeat in the vast, breathing pulse of empire. Its people, shaped by the fury of conquest, found strength in the fragile moments between chaos. Rituals whispered beneath candlelight, meals shared in the glow of flickering fires, and the steady rhythms of survival etched into every grain of rice and drop of water. For every stone of Angkor's towering temples stained by bloodshed, there were countless untold stories of endurance etched in flesh and spirit. The villages, scattered like forgotten pearls along the mighty Mekong and Tonle Sap rivers, bore witness to this quieter struggle. Fields scarred by war's passage were reclaimed by calloused hands, planting rice anew in muddy paddies swollen with monsoon rains. Women worked tirelessly beneath heavy skies, their prayers rising like smoke to unseen ancestors as they prepared food from the earth. Meager gifts: steamed sticky rice, bitter greens, freshwater fish grilled over embers, and the sharp tang of fermented fish paste that flavored every meal. These simple dishes fed not only the body but the spirit, binding communities in a shared act of survival. Children grew up knowing the stories of war, not as distant history but as a living presence in their lives. They learned of great kings and fierce warriors through songs sung by elders, their voices low and somber, weaving myth with memory. Yet childhood itself was often shadowed by the legacy of violence. Boys apprenticed early to the ways of the spear. Girls taught the sacred rituals that might protect their families from harm. Life was a fragile thread pulled taut by the weight of history, yet it held. In the aftermath of conquest, the Khmer people clung fiercely to rituals that anchored them to the past and gave hope for the future. At twilight, the smoke of incense curled upward from altars adorned with offerings of fruit, flowers, and intricately folded palm leaves. These acts of devotion were more than tradition. They were a desperate shield against the chaos that lurked beyond temple walls. Ancestors were called upon to watch over the living, to soothe the restless spirits of the fallen, and to guide the weary through the night's uncertain shadows. The war's imprint was not only etched on the land, but etched deep within the Khmer psyche, a collective memory of loss and endurance. Survivors bore scars unseen by the eye, their dreams haunted by the screams of battlefields and the ghosts of comrades long gone. Yet even in the darkest hours, there were moments of grace, laughter shared over meager meals, the quiet joy of children chasing fireflies in the cooling night, the sacred bond of community that no conqueror could sever. Trade routes that once carried weapons and warriors now bore spices, textiles, and stories. Markets buzzed with life, a vibrant tapestry of cultures blending under the shadow of Khmer power. Merchants haggled over silk and precious gems, while storytellers spun tales of gods and kings who walked among mortals. These exchanges forged connections that would outlast empires, spreading Khmer influence far beyond the reach of the sword. But the empire was not static. It shifted and evolved under the weight of time and fate. As kings passed, so too did the tides of fortune. Some campaigns ended in triumph, others in bitter defeat. The jungle, relentless and untamed, reclaimed what human hands could not hold. Temples crumbled into mossy ruins, armies scattered like leaves before the wind. Yet from these ruins grew the seeds of new stories, new rituals, and new lives. Reflecting on this turbulent history, it becomes clear that Khmer warfare was more than destruction, it was transformation. The legacy of war shaped not only borders but beliefs, art, and identity. The statues carved from stone, the intricate bas-reliefs of battle and worship, and the sacred ceremonies all bear witness to a civilization that embraced both the brutality and the beauty of existence. War was a crucible that tempered the Khmer soul, forging resilience that echoed through generations. Today, the ruins of Angkor stand as silent monuments to this complex past. Tourists and scholars wander beneath the ancient arches, drawn by the mystique of a civilization that once ruled vast swaths of land with iron fists and divine mandates. Yet beneath the surface of stone and shadow lies a living legacy, descendants of those warriors and survivors who continue to honor their heritage through dance, music, and ritual. The past is never truly past. It flows through the veins of the present, like a river carrying stories yet untold. In the final reckoning, the Khmer Empire's story is a testament to the duality of human nature, the capacity for creation and destruction, for reverence and violence, for empire and village. It is a reminder that history is written not only in grand conquests and lost kingdoms, but in the quiet acts of endurance that define what it means to survive. The blood spilled on battlefields and the prayers offered in humble homes are threads woven into the vast tapestry of time, binding together all who lived and dreamed beneath Angkor's looming shadows. Until next time, stay safe and see you in the next history.